Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of April 24th, 2024. The City Council meets all requirements of the state of Washington's Open Public Meeting Act. Community members are welcome to join either in person, remote, via Zoom, or by calling in. For those who wish to participate in future via Zoom, you'll find the instructions to register for public comment on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. Please note that we do not allow comments of any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. We ask that the audience refrain from clapping, cheering, and booing, and no signage of any kind are allowed in the chambers. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Excuse.
Councilmember Ryan. Here. Councilmember Bader.
Here.
Councilmember Toohey.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely. Here. Councilmember Fossey.
Here.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Here.
President Schwab.
Here. At this time, I'd like to ask Vice President Zarlingo to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand if able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Toohey to lead us in the land acknowledgement.
Gladly. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stohuchi people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes for April 17th, 2024?
Councilmember Ryan moves approval of the minutes from April 17th, 2024.
Second, Councilmember Bader.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Abstain?
Councilmember Fossey.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Now it's time for public comment, which includes written comment acknowledgement. Under our rules, written comments shall be considered in the same manner as an oral comment. The commenter must provide their name and city of residence. Written comments submitted without that information will not be considered at council meetings or made part of the public or the official record, but we will read them. So, Angie, do we have any written comments or anyone signed up to speak tonight?
Good evening, President Schwab. We have written comments and some individuals in chambers, so I'll read the written comment names, which the following are in regards to the Clark Park gazebo: Margaret Riddle, Robert Mayer, Sherry Steele, and Jack O'Donnell. And then Jordan Van Hollebeek has submitted comment in regards to Thornton Sullivan Park disc golf. And so we'll move on to those in chambers. If Randy could please come to the podium. If you could please state your full name, city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And there's a little timing light system there that'll monitor your time, and the yellow light, when the yellow light appears, you'll have 30 seconds left.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Randy Stimson, and I reside in Mukilteo. In Everett, I own rental property, 2 houses, a duplex, and a condo. Also in Everett live 8 of my 10 grandchildren that I visit frequently. I have 2 children that have been touched by the opiate crisis. My son was addicted to OxyContin and graduated to heroin. My daughter was addicted to heroin and graduated to fentanyl. Both of them are free from addiction now. Today I want to talk about what helped my son recover. Justin has been clean now for 11 years and is working as a commercial electrician. But before I tell you what helped my son, I'm going to say something a little bit shocking. Treatment doesn't work. My son went to treatment, inpatient, 3 times. All 3 times he relapsed within days. And the reason why addicts relapse is because after struggling through withdrawal, they experience depression, anxiety, and insomnia. And it's very tempting to seek relief from those symptoms. And it goes on for months, maybe even a year. My son tried to quit many times, more than a dozen times, and failed. What helped him recover was drug court. In this program, he had to show up for random drug tests, and if he failed a test, he went to jail. If he didn't show up, a warrant went out for his arrest. He eventually got caught and he went to jail. This shortened the amount of time that Justin spent in a relapsed state and helped his brain to heal. The police were Justin's higher power. Many other things contributed to Justin's recovery, but without the drug court program, they wouldn't have been enough. Because of this, I think any person caught using drugs in public should be arrested on the spot, held for 2 days. Instead of requiring them to show up for court, have them show up for a bi-weekly drug test. If they fail the test or don't show up, a warrant goes out for their arrest. If they are caught loitering in a drug area, they get arrested. To quit drugs, you have to believe that it's possible. Once addicts have been arrested and been withdrawal many times, they will start to believe. Let the police be their higher power. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the other individuals would like to wait till we get to agenda item 18.
Okay, 18. Okay, thank you. Moving on to council comments and liaison reports. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, good evening. Let me switch up the order.
Yeah, I know,
Go
I had to
first,
look,
we'll
I had to look too, yeah.
I don't have much, I guess last night I went to the Historic Commission meeting, and so I have a report from that. So the meeting, they brought up the issue of the gazebo again, and it's a bit of a nuanced situation, so bear with me while I do my best to explain it. So the action that was before the Historic Commission with regards to the gazebo at Clark Park was to approve a certificate of appropriateness, saying that it is an appropriate use of a historic Clark Park to remove the gazebo and add a dog park to the park. The commission had some questions about if that was the appropriate procedure for them and the appropriate item for them to be voting on that evening, because code also allows for when there's a demolition of a structure on a historic site, they would approve or disapprove a waiver of a certificate of appropriateness. A certificate of appropriateness then goes as information only to our planning director to continue on with the process, and a waiver then comes before council for us to take action on. So the commission was hoping to take action on the waiver so that it can come before council, since it is a public park, and the authority over this, sorry, it's been a long day. So they wanted it to come before council for our awareness and for our action. So at the meeting, there was a motion to suspend indefinitely a vote on the certificate of appropriateness, accompanied with a letter from, unanimously approved by the commission, to come to council, informing us of why they decided to suspend their vote. It's my understanding that this action does not preclude the item itself of the funding ordinance to come before council, which I believe is slated for May 8th. So it will be coming before us, and it's a funding ordinance that does include the demolition of the gazebo and the implementation of a dog park, and that would be coming May 8th. But we'll, in the meantime, be getting a letter from the Historic Commission sharing more with us about their approach and how they would like to see the preservation of the gazebo and the incorporation of the gazebo into the final dog park design. So that is my update for this evening, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Bader.
Just a quick report, went to the View Ridge neighborhood meeting last week for you, Council President. It was a good meeting and well run by neighborhood leader Dennis Dutter again, but budget and revenue was obviously foremost on topic, and good discussion and questions there as well. Other than that, no comments and no report.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Joy?
Yeah, just a couple things. Last week, we had our Snow 911 Board meeting on Thursday morning. The Council of Neighborhood meeting on Monday night. We want to thank Council President for also being there. We had a presentation about the Block Watch program, so it was informative, and I think there's a lot more to come to that, and I appreciate the Neighborhood Association asking a lot of really good questions and giving everybody lots of good input. And just wanted to announce that Executive Director of our Children's Museum, Nancy Johnson, is retiring. I think next week is her last week. And she took it over, or started it in 1991. They were in the Comeback building and moved to their site, which was an unused bank building. And then they obviously have done a lot of capital campaigns. It is now one of the most premier children's museums on the West Coast, and maybe even beyond that. They get well over 250,000 visitors a year. So if you know Nancy, send her a note. Thank her for leaving us a gem. Really, really is. So anyway, that's all.
Excellent, thank you. Councilmember Vogely?
Good evening, thank you so much. My apologies for missing last week's meeting, so I will tell you what I did that I would have told you last week. I did go to the Lowell neighborhood meeting, and that was fun as always. It has been a really long time, and nobody recognized me because I think I had a shaved head when I went last. And they had a presentation by Everett Station District Alliance, Ben, and it was actually, he did a really great job, and I didn't get a chance to tell him at that meeting. And so let it be known to the public that, yeah, he did a good job. And Westmont Holly Neighborhood Association had a plant swap and book and tools for gardening at the library a couple of weeks ago, and it went really well. Like, it was impressive. So that was a lot of fun, and I myself brought some plants and took some plants for my garden. And this week I met with Chris Collier for AHA, and I wanted to report that our meetings are changed to the first Monday as of now. So it will be May 1st because Snohomish County tomorrow has changed their meeting dates, and so it's today. And so would have the AHA meeting been. So May 1st at 4:30, and it is via Zoom or Teams or whatever we do, virtual. And thank you, Randy, there you are, for coming in and telling us your story. That is all.
Thank you. Councilmember Fosse?
Thank you. I wanted to also say thank you to Randy and congratulations to your family on their journey. And thank you for sharing that. I just came back from the Workers' Memorial and read the city's proclamation there. And that really was an honor to be there as we remembered all of the workers that have been injured or lost last year. And it was a really, really nice showing of folks with a moment of silence. And a few of my other council members were there and a part of it as well. Councilmember Ryan and President Schwab. I wanted to remind everybody that the Downtown Everett Association flower planting is this Saturday, and that is one of the most fun and rewarding volunteer things you can do every year. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up for that, I usually try to go and drag my kids to it if they'll let me. And so I highly recommend to sign up to do that. So you can go to the DEA website and sign up to volunteer there. And I just want to put the word out there. If anybody hears of any other neighborhoods doing any plant swaps, please let me know. Thanks.
Councilmember Zarlingo, thank you for waiting for the prompt. I appreciate it. Wow. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thanks to all those who sent in comments, especially with explanations. I always appreciate that. Thank you, Randy. Mr. Simpson, I have limited experience in my family with drug and drug recovery. I was struck by one of the comments you made about your son and his job, and I have seen the role of work in the past help keep people regulated and make them more self-sufficient. So I have a lot of respect for that. With respect to work, I attended an event today, the ribbon cutting for the Zero Avia company here in Everett, their new plant out there next to Payne Field, with Council President Schwab and Councilmember Ryan. It was a real pleasure and a really interesting thing. As an electrical engineer and for an electric airplane and gear company, this was right up my alley. That's now going to be their largest facility, and it is a very large one. It's their Center for Propulsion Technology, specifically the motors and the electronics that drive them from hydrogen fuel cells. So these are electric planes that carry hydrogen around and convert that to electricity in fuel cells and fly around at commuter things. I think 250-mile range at the beginning, going to about 500 once they go to liquid hydrogen. And then their partner, Ohmium, they had their gear there where they turn the water into hydrogen. And I make a few comments on this because I think it's really significant to our region. This is going to be a very large operation that has some real chance to change things in terms of aircraft and especially in terms of climate, in terms of generating energy with a minimal impact and removing that carbon generation from the upper atmosphere where the airplanes are. So really neat stuff, especially because this company is not just a one technology company. They're working on the motors, they're working on the inverters of the electronics, they're working on the fuel cell hardware. So this increases the chance that this company will have real deep significance. There are other things going on with that are also significant. That includes getting FAA certification. And they're not only talking about aircraft, they're talking about things that can be used for buses and for power generation. So they're really trying to look at that entire generation, that entire energy chain from generation to actually carting people around. That increases the chance that they'll have commercial significance, pervasiveness, grow to the kind of large size that we've seen some other aerospace companies do here. So that's part of why I was particularly interested in looking at this. And also, I'm mindful of our aerospace cluster. It's a little bit like Silicon Valley in the sense that there are these different companies with complementary skill sets. They sometimes involuntarily trade people and expertise. Stuff shifts around. It makes for a more vital thing. It increases the chance we have resilience with multiple companies successful here. So really a great thing to go see, bigger than I had expected it to be, and really an encouraging thing. You don't need to remember any of those details, but yes, this is a big deal. It's neat technology, and it comes because we have fostered this aerospace cluster with Payne Field, Everett, Snohomish County, and all these things together that started primarily with Boeing. One other thing attended today, Snohomish County tomorrow. This is Commissioner Nate Nearing chairs a group of county and city and tribal leaders and community representatives. They meet monthly. I'm the city's representative on that when the mayor's not available. They have a focus on countywide planning policies, and particularly covered today was a briefing on a county consideration of what they call inclusionary zoning. It's an effort to provide more affordable housing and to focus some of this on areas that are really ready for redevelopment and are in the unincorporated county, but on major access corridors like transit. So if you've thought about parts of, say, Highway 99 and Aurora that really could use redevelopment and that are already on these major transit routes and closer to jobs and that sort of thing, that's kind of what we need. The idea, though, is to gather together both city and county leaders and some community representatives who are some of the ones who would do some of that development, the people who will pull together the money and risk large sums of money for long periods of time to turn that into housing in the environment that we give them. So there was a robust discussion of that, a request for some really specific information about that in terms of what the county may be considering doing so that it will be successful. One of the people made the point that if you do this wrong, these things just sort of stall and the places sit vacant and unused or underused for long periods of time. So generally, for those of you who are watching your government representatives, this is the kinds of things that go on, and hopefully these will have some real
power down the road in terms of our economics and especially our housing. And I think one other thing I attended a couple of days ago, Snohomish County Cities, but I'll leave that to the very capable hands of its
Okay.
chair, Don Schwab.
All right, well, thank you for everyone's report. I have a couple things. I will bring up the Snohomish County Cities presentation that was last Thursday. We had a presenter, Mike Bailey, who is a highly respected analyst of city budgets and auditors of budgets, works for multiple agencies, certification agencies. And he brought up something and he's actually locally, although he travels all over the country, he brought up something interesting, and I said a version of it before, and that was this idea of our tax initiatives in the state. It was his opinion that that the initiators of the 1% restriction, that they knew that it wasn't going to be enough to sustain organizations, and that it was truly designed to work within the 1%, and then if the cities or the jurisdictions or local taxing districts needed more dollars, then it was designed to go to the public for an additional vote. So in essence, it's working. And so for the last 20 years, here we are, right? We're at this point where we have done all the hard work. And it just wasn't this current administration. It was to get hats off to previous administrations. Even it started back with Mayor Hansen on being responsible as possible with our budget items. So I thought that was very interesting. That here's the guru of budget analysis saying, yeah, it was designed for this very thing that we're going to propose to our residents to put on the ballot. So it was an honor to attend the Snohomish County and Island County Labor Council sponsored Workers Memorial. Thank you very much, Councilmember Fossey and Ryan, for being there. Boy, after the reading of the names, it was, these weren't military. We obviously mourn those who lost their lives in the military and other, other services to our community and to our country, but these were actually workers that, showed up in the morning to provide for their families. When your son or daughter doesn't get a new job and you get all excited about it, you're not expecting them to not come home, right? So it was staggering the amount of names. So it was a really nice and well-attended event. And I did want to touch a little bit about the Zero Avia ribbon cutting today. It did get the attention of the governor and several congressional delegation, which is nice. This is one of those great things in Everett that's going on that I really don't think we hear enough about. And I really appreciate, there were just the county economic alliance, the executive's office, our mayor. She's not here now. I was going to give her some recommendation. The delegation. This was a gem to get in our community. There are large communities, large states throughout the country that are fighting to get this type of, competing to get this type of business in our cities. So hats off to so many people. So it's pretty exciting to have up to, in the 5 years, potentially 1,000 jobs here in our community. And interesting that I spent some time talking with some of the employees there, and a lot of them are moving here, but guess what they're challenged with? Housing costs, right? So it was interesting conversations that I had with them because we are growing in this plant, so they're moving from their other factories. So I assured them that we're doing everything we can as a city, but we have a lot of room to go. So I thought I'd just share that comment. So thank you for that. Do we have an administrative update?
Just something brief. I think we've heard, maybe at the last meeting, maybe the one before, concerns about park safety, and council members have talked about it as well. We talked recently about lighting improvements at Jackson Park. So just thought I would highlight that we are in the midst of doing lighting upgrades, both with grants and other programs at a lot of parks, including Garfield, Grand, Wiggums, Jackson, Clark, Kiwanis, Lyons, Cash Park, Phil Johnson, Walter E. Hall, and Langus. So pretty widespread throughout the city, and I thought it was a nice thing to highlight. So And that's it, because I know we have lots of things to get to tonight.
Okay, thank you. Now on to our City Attorney David Hall.
No report and no executive session.
All right, thank you. So I have consent items 1 through 9. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second the motion?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Okay, so I have 2 proposed action items, first reading that I'll read into the record. Item number 10, Council Bill 2404-98, first reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special construction project entitled Main Library HVAC Replacement Project, Fund 342, Program 041, to accumulate design and engineering costs for the project. Third and final reading will be May 8, 2024. Item number 11, first reading, Council Bill 2404-99, adopt an ordinance creating a special construction project entitled South Police Precinct HVAC Controls Replacement Project, Fund 342, Program 044, to accumulate design and engineering costs for the project. Final reading is May 8, 2024. Do I have any questions on item 10 and 11? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our action items. Items 12 through 18 are third and final reading. So I'll go ahead and we'll just work one at a time. Council Bill 2403, item 12-91, third and final reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled 20th Street CIPP Sewer Lining Fund 336, Program 038, repealing ordinance number 3950-23. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any questions? Okay, clerk, will you take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes, and bear with me, I drank a half a gallon of tea, so my throat would be ready for all these readings. Okay, item number 13, Council Bill 2403-92, third and final reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled WFP Phase 2 Capital Upgrades Fund 336, Program 021, and repealing ordinance number 3943-23. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second the motion?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any questions? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Item number 14, Council Bill 2403-93, third and final reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled Senator Henry M. Jackson Park Lighting Improvement Project, Fund 354, Program 099, to accumulate all costs for the project in the amount of $150,000. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Item number 15, Council Bill 2404-94, third and final reading. Adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled Thornton A. Sullivan Park Floating Dock Repairs, Fund 354, Program 100, to accumulate all design, engineering, and permit costs for the project in the amount of $40,000. Do I have a motion?
Move to pass.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Is there any questions? Okay, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Item number 17, third and final reading, Council Bill 2404-96. Adopt an ordinance granting permission to the United States Postal Service to construct, maintain, and operate an overhead sky bridge across 80th Street Southwest, located approximately 85 feet west of Hardison Road. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to second. Are there any questions? Councilmember Vogely,
Only mentioning that you forgot one, but let's vote on this.
which one did I forget? Okay, thank you. We'll do that next. How's that? All right,
Perfect.
thank you. So item number 17, Any other questions? Okay. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Item number 16, Council Bill 2404-95, third and final reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled Thornton A. Sullivan Park Disc Golf Course Improvement Project, Fund 354, Program 096, to accumulate all costs for the project in the amount of $150,000.
Councilmember Ryan so moves.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Do I have any questions?
We do enjoy ribbing you, President Schwab.
Okay, thank you. That's a comment. So, Councilmember Ryan.
No questions, but just a comment thanking everybody that wrote in about, in support of the disc golf course. And I know it's going to be well utilized based on the comments that we received, so appreciate everybody's engagement. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on item 16? Okay, hearing none. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. All right. So we've got everything up to 17, right? All right, we're good. Okay, item number 18, Council Bill 2404-97, third and final reading. Adopt an ordinance approving the appropriations of the 2024 revised City of Everett budget and amending ordinance number 3983-23. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments?
There are public comment as well.
Oh, we're going to do public comment? Oh, yes, thank you. All right. Okay, let's do public comment.
Okay, if Andrea could please come to the podium. And please hit the right button on the base of the microphone. And then state your full name, city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Andrea Tucker. I live in Everett. Good evening, council members. I'm glad all of you are here, and I appreciate all of you. I'm here to support Council Member Ryan's proposal to grant the Council of Neighborhoods $100,000 from the one-time ARPA funds. I've been a consistent volunteer with the Council of Neighborhoods and in my neighborhood for about 15 years, first Bayside and now Port Gardner. City of Everett has a small army of dedicated citizens who are willing to donate their time, energy, and some year after year to improve neighborhoods and make Everett a welcoming community. All of the work cannot be done with all types of support. Each neighborhood has its own separate needs, and especially now, the ability to use current technology, a lot of signage, and mailings to grow participation. Events, monthly meetings, steering committee meetings, community gardens are all additional to the basics. I'm very grateful and proud of our neighborhood associations and the city of Everett. As I know, hearing from other cities, that neighborhood associations are enviable. I urge city council and administration to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker? Is it the same amendment?
Yes.
Yes? Okay,
Same
well,
item number.
okay, is it on an amendment?
I just know that it's item 18 that she wishes to speak
Okay,
to.
I was wondering if Councilmember Ryan would like to. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Jean, could you please come to the podium? And please state your full name and city of residence, and you have
My
3
name
minutes
is
to
Jean
speak.
Setty Hewitt, and I live in Everett, and I appreciate all the work that the council does. I support Councilmember Ryan's proposal to add $100,000 to support neighborhoods. I'm just one of the many volunteers from 13 active neighborhood organizations who dedicate hundreds of hours and personal resources to create community by planning and holding monthly meetings, writing newsletters, maintaining websites, offer information and assistance to connect residents to the city and the city to residents, plan and execute dozens of creative and well-attended events throughout the city, and raise thousands of dollars to donate to local charities and groups. All of this work is made possible by tireless volunteers, support of the Office of Engagement and Communications, and $19,000 of mini-grant money, $1,000 per active neighborhood for the entire city of Everett. I would argue that this is an excellent return on investment. I support and commend Councilmember Ryan's proposal to give $100,000 in ARPA funds to support our neighborhoods. These much-needed dollars will go a long way to help us reconnect with our neighbors after COVID, provide mailings to engage and train residents in our underserved neighborhoods, and make Everett a vibrant, welcoming, and inclusive community for all. Thank you so much for your consideration and your hard work.
Thank you.
That concludes our public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, before you is item number 18. Is there any questions or comments? Councilmember Ryan, what a surprise.
Thank you. Spoiler. As I mentioned at the first reading, the budget amendment that's before us this evening does include the $100,000 per council member for allocation. And there had been a meeting with our Council of Neighborhoods leaders to solicit ideas from them on ways that allocations could help support our neighborhoods and neighborhood engagement and outreach. And I had been trying to think through ways that we could, as council members, equitably respond to the requests and meet their needs, but knowing just our differentiations in the number of neighborhoods that we have, from at-large seats to active districts and whatnot, I couldn't think of a way. So to me, the decision was clear to allocate an additional $100,000 directly to the Council of Neighborhoods so that they can determine what their highest need is with their neighborhoods, and that they can have the autonomy to direct those decisions. So tonight I have an amendment, which I will be reading into the record and also copying and pasting to our clerk so that she doesn't have to type too quickly. Tonight I would like to propose an amendment, amending Council Bill 2404-97 to include as follows: an additional $100,000 in COVID recovery dollars to the City of Everett's Communications and Engagement Department, Department 018, for an allocation to be determined by the City of Everett's Council of Neighborhoods, and in a manner which the Council of Neighborhoods decides. Allocations must meet the following criteria: in sums no less than $25,000 per funding category, but smaller allocations may come from that category. For example, the first item on the list that we had received said $25,000 can go to neighborhood association management for mini grants to support website and email management, supplies, mailings, trainings, and other items of interest. Must also meet criteria number 2. Shall only utilize existing full-time employees within the City of Everett and not require additional staff. Shall not require a commitment to ongoing or reoccurring expenses for the city. And last, a fair and equitable distribution across the whole city and neighborhood network to include neighborhoods who are unrepresented at the Council of Neighborhoods. Additionally, no allocations may be made for any purpose or of any size without Council of Neighborhoods approval. If an allocation includes or requires a professional service agreement, the agreement must come before council for approval regardless of size. And upon final decision by the Council of Neighborhoods, the City Council will be provided with an itemization of their allocation.
Okay, there's a motion's been, an amendment to our bill has been made. Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the amendment?
Okay, I will take that as a yes. I can go.
Okay.
I just approve, really, and I know that when we spoke 2 weeks ago at the meeting, I approved then, so I don't think it is a surprise. And I very much like the attention to detail and criteria that Councilmember Ryan has put into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that was a tie there. Councilmember Fosse.
I just wanted to concur and thank Councilmember Ryan for bringing this forward as a former Council of Neighborhoods representative. I think that this is awesome and very much well needed and well placed because, as our speakers previously said, they put in a lot of hours, and these volunteer hours build community and do so much good. So I can't think of a better place to put these dollars than in their hands.
Okay, Councilmember Zarlingo.
Councilmember Fosse took the words out of my mouth.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to thank all the people at the council of neighborhoods. So you guys do such great work, and we're really proud of our neighborhoods, so thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, I'd just like to say that there are a lot of groups that are represented in the neighborhoods that are unorganized. So I hope that the consideration would be to get out and focus on, there's so many community people that love our town that just don't know how to get connected. So you guys have a great system, the neighborhood group's just a great system, but hopefully we can rally the troops and get more people involved with this funding. So, thank you. All right, so on the amendment to Council Bill 2404, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Okay, so back to Council Bill 2404-97 as amended. Do I have any more questions or comments? Councilmember Vogely?
I am bringing forward something that I did not preface at a previous meeting, so I'm hoping it's an amendment. And I would like to, I would like to amend the amount for relocation services to the Waits Motel from $50,000 to $354,900. And so that would be amending Council Bill 2404-97, same one that we talked about. Adopt an ordinance approving the appropriations of the 2024 revised City of Everett budget and amending ordinance number 3983-23 to include as follows. An additional $304,900 plus the $50 that's already allotted for a total of $354,900 to NGA 3 CIP 4 Waits relocation costs to complete the City of Everett's Waits Motel resident relocation. Allocations must meet the following criteria. $600 per month per displaced unit, which is 13, for 36 months. So that is $21,600 per unit for a total in that section of $280,000. To be paid in one lump sum or monthly direct deposit to person named as rent payer, unless there's a different word that fits that better. Or split 50-50 between the residents who shared a room, because 4 units had 2 adults residing together. Second bullet point, $5,700 per unit for first, last deposit, and incidentals. To me, that is $1,850 plus $1,850 plus $2,000. Okay, $27,300 per unit. That is the total per unit. I'll get into the math, you'll understand. And I also put 2 copies over there. To be paid in a separate lump sum to the relocated household. The cost paid for transitional housing thus far will be included in the payoff amount, because I know some money has already been spent. Third bullet point, any displaced individual or group who has in some way moved on from relocation services will be offered in writing the full payoff amount minus money paid in relocation thus far with the same terms, i.e. a lump sum and/or monthly direct deposit regardless of their current situation. And the fourth bullet point, a notification of these terms will be provided to each of the 17 residents, and signed copies of said residents accepting or denying these terms will be provided to council. So that is the amendment. I have done a bunch of math to help folks
Okay,
understand, and I don't, okay, sorry,
Before
that's
we
the
get
amendment.
that, do you want to read more, or do you want to get a second?
Oh, I'd love a second.
Is there a second?
Councilman Ryan, second.
Okay, so we motion a second, and then questions. Do you want to go more, or do you want questions now?
I could take some questions
Okay.
and,
Right.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, do we have any questions so far? I guess I have one here. On your bullet points, you said $600 per month.
Mhm.
And then second, you had $5,700 per unit, and you had different dollar amounts. So I guess,
I explain.
Math.
Okay,
Yes.
that's where the math comes in
Yeah.
later? Okay, thank you, all right.
Before I get, no, I'll go with math. The current approximate rent for a one-bedroom unit in the city of Everett right now is $18.50 per month. People at the Waits Motel were paying between $400 and $1,500 per month in rent at the Waits. Without going into personal finances of each individual, the city in this manner shall pay 30% of the current approximate rent value for a one-bedroom, which would then be $600, so that's how I get the $600 per month, which is similar to what HUD pays in rent subsidy for housing vouchers. The city shall also pay first month's, last month deposit and incidentals, which would be totaling $5,700 per unit. At least, up to, I think it's just period. That's a good question, but it seems pretty, I mean, if they want to take less, sure. But, yes, up to that amount. Upon the city of Everett taking ownership of the Waits Motel in January of 2024, it was found that 17 adults and 2 children were in residence. Those residents were occupying 13 units. Utilizing the math above to make the numbers equal and palatable, I will provide the sum using family units or room units of 13. So $27,300 per unit, and that's times 13 is $354,900. The current budget amendment, number 1, has an allocation of $50,000 in this regard. I've taken that amount from my total of $354,900 to come up with the additional amount to be allocated. So that's $354,900 minus $50,000 equals $304,900.
So just some
Yes.
clarification. So you're asking to allocate another 304,000?
Correct.
Okay,
So the total will be $354,900.
okay.
But the 50's already there in that slot.
Okay, any other questions or comments at this point? Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, I just want clarification from the staff. You know, this isn't ARPA funds, so it's
Correct.
different. So where this would come from and what that does for other programs that might be in that program.
I have the answer, but Susie can come up too.
I think it'd be great if Susie's able to answer that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So,
There's a copy that you can see also, yes, and the answer is probably number 3 on the backside. That you can see if I'm correct or not, I don't know.
So all of the funding for the Waits project has come from CIP4. And I have to admit that I was not prepared for this event. And so I would need to take a moment to look at the fund and come back with the status of that.
That'd be great.
Questions or comments? Councilmember Fosse.
So do the amounts that are here essentially, because we were told that the things like the federal uniform relocation assistance and things like that would apply when we took our original vote. So are these numbers on here in line with that, which was our expectation as we voted to move forward originally?
I've just seen this, so I've not done the math. And I think it's been several months since we told you that the URA was going to be used as a guideline, that we had determined it did not apply to this group, but we would use it to make sure everybody got the relocation assistance and services that they needed to end up in a better place than they are at the Waits. But I don't have any analysis for you right now comparing this with the URA or whether that's even appropriate. I think that just as Susie would like more time to analyze this, legal would probably like more time to analyze This, as you can imagine, spending $300,000 of taxpayer money to hand over to folks who may or may not that we may or may not be legally required to pay, raises some complex legal issues. And I would hate to give an opinion off the cuff right now. It's something I would like to analyze, I'd like to talk about with my team, and probably talk about in an executive session.
So, thank you for that explanation. A few points on that as far as the appropriateness. Because that was the understanding that we made our original vote on, is that it would apply, and those were the conditions that were explained to us, that it would fall under. I think it's completely appropriate to make considerations regarding this, if it does kind of fall under those uniform relocation assistance that originally we were there. And I understand the need for you guys to review to make sure that these do fall under. So is that something where we could or should call for an executive session or a break for review of that, since we probably have to pass these things today?
Well, I don't think you have to pass it today.
So
I
is
don't
that-
know if there's an urgency with the budget amendment, but you have a motion on the floor, so you have to kind of wrangle with that. I would encourage you to consider a path that would allow a little extra time for that analysis. You can always go to executive session, of course, you could do that right now if you wanted, but
Well, I think the analysis that my team
Oh,
would
yeah.
like to undertake would take
Right.
longer than the next 30 minutes. And I think what you're suggesting is that we pass the budget as amended by the First Amendment,
May I?
and then preserve the possibility of amending it again with another ordinance after we come back?
No.
Am I understanding that correctly or not?
I would say whatever the council is comfortable with.
Sure.
You could always table
That's
the
what I meant.
motion.
I understand where
At this
we're
point,
going.
I'll step in as chair.
Yeah, thanks.
I would prefer that item number 18 pass as all needed, so I would, if there is another motion by, go ahead, Councilmember Zerlingo.
Well, my understanding of our trajectory with the Waits Motel was to provide services to people to get them into long-term housing. We had a plan to do that. We had consultants to do that. We have administration and staff who've been working on that path with that trajectory. This is a significantly different trajectory, and I think I'd want to know many things, including is a lump sum payment to people who have had difficulties in their lives going to be a wise thing or a useful thing to them? So with all of that and this very different trajectory on this, this amendment, I move to table.
Okay, so if we table this amendment, would that motion be a table the entire bill then?
No.
May I?
Well, I'm asking,
Okay.
do you want to table the amendment or the motion?
No, my motion and my concern is specifically with this amendment
All right.
and lack of readiness, so the tabling is for this amendment. The motion to table is for this amendment.
Well, I guess some clarification on my part, because if we table the amendment, then can we still pass the bill?
As amended by the First Amendment,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
May I?
Well, there's been a motion to amend or to table just the discussion on the amendment. There's no discussion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so,
Point of information.
sure, go ahead, point over.
Okay,
Yep.
so, point of order. So if that gets tabled and then the vote comes forward that's with the previous amendment to pass this, is this something that can be revisited or worked on and, brought back next week or something like that?
So we can either table the whole bill and wait till all the amendments are made, or we could pass the bill and we can amend it later. So right now, we have the bill as the First Amendment. If this amendment gets tabled, then we pass the bill, we can still go back and amend it later.
We also do multiple budget amendments in a year, so that's the whole
As the,
thing will come back again. So should you table just this amendment? I think, like, vote on that. And then I think that your next decision point would be, is there support to pass the budget as amended? And bring back the conversation around Councilmember Vogel's amendment, probably 2 or 3 weeks from now. Next week has a big item on it. And that might be sort of the whole budget amendment, let's bring the whole thing back, or let's just bring that piece back. I think we are fine either way, as long as, I would ask that you give us time to answer those questions, and, yeah.
Okay, so for clarification, though, it would
Yeah.
not be, if we pass the bill as with the First Amendment, it would be a new bill
Yes.
with additional language with Councilmember Vogel's.
As
Yeah, I think
the
we have to
maker of
think
the
about it.
motion, may I say something
You may, yes, Councilmember Vogel.
that has specifics to do with this motion?
But keep in mind, we have a second, and we have a table, so really, there's no discussion on a table. So we have to vote on the table.
Unless the clarification is
If you ask for
that-
clarification, yes, but we gotta, because we may have tables in the future. So
Okay,
there's no discussion on the table.
right. Except that I would be okay to bring this back with the entire bill.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Are you asking to withdraw your amendment?
Say yes.
Well,
'cause then we can get more
I just
specifics
for
on this.
order, I'm just gonna go with no discussion on the table, except for point of clarification, so we're gonna stick with that, so,
Okay,
you can always make another motion. Okay, so, on the table,
okay,
Sorry, point of clarification.
Sure.
If she participates as a yes vote in the tabling of it, she still has the ability to bring it back, yes? That doesn't,
Correct.
okay.
okay. I might understand.
okay, we can just bring it back, and, okay, so on the table. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes, okay, so back to Council Bill 2404-97 as amended. Councilman Ryan. Okay, Councilman Ryan?
I would like to make a motion to table the underlying motion for 2 weeks.
So you're making a motion to table the entire bill 2404-97.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions? Councilman Tui?
So I just want to ask Susie, does that cause any complications for you with everything else that was on the,
It's not a table.
by tabling the whole thing?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, you're right, you did table it. Too many tablings around here.
I'm
We got
afraid
a
on
point
the
of
ordinance, does
clarification.
that complicate the finances? in any
For,
way?
if we
Table
table
it.
the entire
Yes.
ordinance, amending ordinance for 2 weeks.
Yes.
That will be okay. There are a lot of important things in this ordinance, though, that really need to be passed, so
Yeah.
I would encourage council to.
Okay, so is that good?
Yeah,
Clarification?
I mean, I would prefer to pass it and come back and
Okay, that's
revisit it. So
discussion.
that we can continue with our business.
All right, so on the motion to table the entire Council Bill 2404-97.
How long was the tabling?
2 weeks since.
It's until it's brought back to the floor,
Okay.
okay? There's no discussion. Clerk, will you take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
No.
Councilmember Tui?
No.
Councilmember Vogely?
To table the whole thing, yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Point of clarification, she was saying 2 weeks, and then somebody else said, when it comes back. Point of clarification, she had said, Councilmember Ryan had said 2 weeks, and then somebody else had said, just when it comes back?
I mean, Council President Schwab is chairing your meeting. He said indefinite. I
No,
think
I
that
didn't say
it's,
definite, I said it
sorry,
can come back at
when
any
it-
time.
okay.
It can come back at any next meeting.
So clarification on what we're voting on. It is indefinite for when you want to bring it back?
I know table is until it's brought back from the table.
So it's not specifically 2 weeks?
Well, I think under parliamentary procedure, that any member has a right to bring it back from the table whenever they want to call it back, so.
That's correct.
so-
That's my interpretation. It's more important when you have monthly meetings, but we have weekly meetings, so the effect of tabling is less.
Yes?
Vice President Zarlingo.
No.
President Schwab.
I'll vote yes. It's tabled, the entire bill. Okay, thanks for that. So we're going to, before we move on to items 19 through 21, administration, did you have some comments to make?
Super brief little comments on the next 3 items. So first, the next item is for approval to place the Apex Art and Culture Center building on the historic register. And these photos are in your packet, but they've just done a really beautiful job with that space. And I thought it was a nice opportunity to highlight their work there and celebrate the efforts they've made to restore that building. Item 20, I'll just leave that up there, it's nice. Item 20 has to do with a coal collection, relatively routine, but a collection of professional services agreements for our Public Works Department. And these are to create an on-call list for firms that they'll use for environmental services. And they get used for a bunch of different capital projects, and just helps expedite our processes and get things done quickly. So that's item 20. And let me make sure I got, yeah, that was 20. Okay, good. And then the last one that I thought I would comment on, item 21, relates to an easement for the interurban trail. Now, generally, easements don't even make it to your agenda because we do them all the time for water and sewer lines and things like that. But this one, you know, has a little more interest to the public. And it's kind of a momentous occasion because we had a agreement with the PUD for 25 years, and now we're renewing it for another big chunk of time. The language in the easement just handles sort of the shared responsibility for the public use, and then, of course, the parallel use that the PUD has for some of the property there, and then they've got some adjacent property, and just an exciting moment because the interurban is such a great asset for our community. So that's all. Thanks.
Okay, all right. Item number 19, approve resolution adding Apex Art and Culture Center building located at 1611 Everett Avenue to the Everett Register of Historic Places. Do I have a motion?
Councilmember Ryan definitely
Okay,
votes.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any more questions? Councilmember Ryan.
I just wanted to give a shout out. I see Sherry here and to John, and just the amazing work that they have done with this building to take it from what it was to what it is now. And I had the opportunity to go to an open house style event, and one of the things that Sherry shared was about how this is their moment of time to be the caretakers for the building. And I just thought that was a really special way to think about it. And I just hope we could triplicate you guys, if that's even a word, to take care of all of the other amazing historic buildings here in Everett. So thank you for giving this gift to the city. Appreciate it.
Okay, any more questions? Councilmember Vogely.
I'm just curious, I'm happy about this, so yay. Did it go to the Historical Commission? Does that happen? And then, okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I figured it did, but, okay, wonderful. That's great. That's
Okay, all right. No more questions. Clerk, will you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Item number 20, authorize the mayor to sign a professional service agreement, 2024-20 through 2028, on-call environmental services. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Seconded.
Okay, motion and a second. Is there any questions? Okay, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Item number 20, authorize the mayor to sign a recreational trail easement for an urban trail. Do I hear a motion?
Is
So
number
moved.
21.
Row 21.
Second.
On item 21, thank you. Okay, do I have a second? Okay, motion is second. Are there any questions on item 21? Okay, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. All right, moving on to our briefing items. These items come before the city council serving as a council committee or as a whole and are likely to be scheduled at a future meeting. We have a briefing on item 22, emergency mobile opioid team in Everett. We have Community Development Director Julie Willie.
Good evening.
Okay.
No problem. Thank you so much. So this past January, the Health and Human Services Committee was briefed on a new pilot program, which the community development team believes will be highly beneficial for those who are living unhoused and are experiencing opioid use disorder. Thanks to their support, Council, thank you. This new tool we have continued to move forward with the development of a pilot program. And tonight we wanted the full council to have an opportunity to learn about a program called Emote. The Emergency Mobile Opioid Team in Everett intends to bring street-level mobile treatment to Everett's most vulnerable population. The program will provide peer support with navigation to access to medication care and behavioral health support, primarily for those Everett residents who are unable or choose not to interact with traditional office-based care. Emote intends to increase the number of unhoused individuals who will receive treatment for addiction, increase health insurance uptakes, reduce crisis intervention calls such as 911, emergency transfers, and arrests. The city of Everett was made, well, when we originally talked to you about this, we were intending to use funds from our opioid settlement dollars, but the city of Everett was made aware that we are set to receive $500,000 in funding from the state operating budget appropriations process, passed through by the Association of Washington Cities and the Healthcare Authority to fund a street medicine pilot program, which will cover the operational expenses for this Emote program. The agreement for this funding, however, and the fund allocation will be presented to council at a later date upon receiving the information from the grantor. In the meantime, so to not delay the launch of this necessary program any longer, we are asking council to authorize the mayor to sign a professional service agreement with Conquer Health using those opioid settlement funds to support the expenses until the AWC HCA grant is received. At that point, the opioid settlement funds will stop being used and we'll begin using the funds from the state. Tonight, we have with us Dr. Tom Roby, who is kind of the mastermind and visionary behind this program, as well as Dr. Jacob Grillo from Conquer Health, who is providing the fiscal management support, and we would like to give them an opportunity to share with you about the program.
Just turn the mic on.
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here tonight, and thank you to Julie and to the staff and to, frankly, everyone in Everett and Snohomish County who is committed to overcoming this epidemic of drug dependence and homelessness. I also want to specifically thank Randy for sharing his perspectives. I think you will find that what we're going to present here tonight is based in input from individuals who have lived experience with this disease and with homelessness. So Everett is positioned in a very hopeful space in that there are good organizations that are working on these problems, but there aren't quite enough. And because of that, these organizations work really well together because we all know that we can't do everything and there's not a lot of competition. And for that, I'd like to present a way that maybe we can fill in the gap for patients like mine in the emergency department who never show up. They don't show up to clinic, they don't show up to the ED. They don't interact with some of the excellent programs that we have embedded with our police and fire departments to get help. So why do we need a moat? Well, as I mentioned, our medical system consists of structural barriers that really prevent people from coming and making it known that they want to quit. I rarely encounter patients in my work that want to keep using fentanyl and want to keep using meth. Yes, people make decisions, and yes, the addiction keeps people coming back to the drug, but everyone has this central drive to be better. And you see this no matter where people are coming from. And I'd like to share a little bit about how the emote is going to remove the barriers that block vulnerable individuals from receiving medical care. So, medication for opioid use disorder is currently the gold standard for treating fentanyl dependence. And this is facilitated in our jails. It is facilitated in the hospital. It is soon to be facilitated by some of our first responders. And in order to overcome these structural and emotional barriers to seeking care in a hospital setting, we offer peer counselors that will go out into the community, be on the street, make relationships with folks who are using drugs so that those individuals can navigate around the stigma of receiving care for addiction. So how will emote work? We propose a car-based street medicine initiative that works very closely with municipal referrals from systems that already exist with embedded social workers, with our trusted partners at the Everett Gospel Mission, and with the street medicine initiative, Mercy Watch. These individuals will be able to connect with us when they encounter a patient or a neighbor who wants to quit, who wants to take the next step in getting clean, but maybe doesn't want to go to the emergency department, maybe doesn't want to go to an outpatient office. We will be able to provide this care next to their tent, or in the car, or in a shelter. And it's possible to facilitate these medications for opioid use disorder without even going into an office. And we learned how to do this because of COVID. Telemedicine and telehealth interventions work really well for medication for opioid treatment. The thing is that our underhoused individuals in Everett also have struggles with mental health issues. And in addition to providing the care for the addiction that they suffer, we will provide behavioral health therapy, both through the telehealth modality, but then also by helping them get to the office in a safe way and connecting with providers in the field. A nurse practitioner can come to the patient wherever they are. So in medicine, a lot of times we like to say we meet patients where they are. This is literally what we intend to do here in Everett with the emote service. So just walking you through this pictogram, we will have referrals, but then also the peers who will work in the van will, in the car, will build relationships with individuals in the community who then will also self-refer to the system. And as you see in the bottom of this diagram, one option is that a patient will engage with a telehealth behavioral intervention. Sometimes people do need to connect with healthcare systems, and if they agree to it, we could transport them there. And also, we can continue providing connections to the detox and the rehab centers, get people to appointments, get people to the pharmacy to pick up the drug. This is the advantage of having a car-based mobile outreach team. So we propose a sustainable system that will have peer counselors that can navigate the community and also provide some interventions. We'll have a nurse practitioner that can help facilitate treatment on the street. We have a fuel-efficient vehicle that can get around town, but also transport belongings if people so decide to go to detox or rehab. We have budgeted in some management issues, and since this is a new program, really not a lot anywhere else in the country engaging populations just like we propose. I'll be providing some real-time quality improvement metrics based on some of the skill set that I have doing behavioral health research. So we aim to be able to course correct and optimize the services that we provide as we get input from the street. So we have some partners that you may recognize. Courage to Change already serves this population in a limited capacity in terms of connecting people to detox and rehab. The Snohomish County Diversion Center is a potential destination for folks who want to take a step to get clean and get off the street. The Everett Gospel Mission and Mercy Watch are also doing work with this same population and will be working with us to share information to the extent that individuals are willing to connect with treatment like we provide. The primary contractor here will be Concord Clinics, and Jacob Grillo is the director of the Concord Clinics, and so Concord will be administering payroll and insurance and assuring all of the compliance that is necessary for healthcare provision, and also has agreed to provide rapid access to counseling. And we're not talking next day or next week, we're talking same day, next hour intervention. And so that's something that's very unique about what we're proposing here. Need to take a step back with your permission and indicate that all of the planning that we've put into this over the last 6 to 8 months needs to come with the humility that a street medicine initiative is no good unless it's informed by the street. And so we've done our legwork, we've done a lot of work to try to figure out what it is that we need here in Everett. And, but understanding that individual and systemic obstacles might end up changing the service that we provide. And so that'll be continually updated through the community support team here in Everett to make sure that we're interfacing correctly and optimally providing the care that we need in our community. So we've been working on site plans, getting all the permitting in place. We have a referral system in place, and we really want to minimize the impacts that our service has on existing businesses, on residents, on public spaces. Yes, this will be a van, it will have a logo on it, but this we don't aim to have a Pied Piper kind of situation where people follow the van. The van responds to urgent need and is there and helps facilitate our peers getting into the community where and when they're needed. So these are some of the people who have been working on this, and I'm very glad to take questions now if you have any, but also by email. This is a project that is long in the making, and I think we're positioned right now with the opioid settlements and with the crisis that we're facing to really make a difference. And thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Councilman Bader.
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation information. Julie, are you proposing that we vote on this tonight?
I believe it's on your agenda for May 1st.
Okay, thanks.
Of course, you can vote tonight if you'd like.
We've had plenty, thank you.
Next. Obviously, this is, I think you pointed out, this is a new program. So you can't point to other areas where this has succeeded in, okay.
So I can actually point to a few programs. Providing mental health services on the street has been a perennial challenge for other street medicine initiatives. Some of the people I've spoken with elsewhere in the country are in New Haven, in Denver, and in San Francisco. And all three of those cities do have street medicine initiatives that are bringing medication for opioid use into the community in the way that we propose. But they're all supported heavily by large academic institutions. And so the difference in what I say about this being kind of a new program is that this is a fully community initiated program. And so we're going out and building the collaboration that we need in order to get patients into treatment in the way that they agree to. And so that's what's different about what we're doing now.
Do you have any sense that this might actually prolong people staying out on the street rather than getting institutional treatment? I mean, I know there's a lack of institutional treatment or institutionalized treatment, but.
So of the individuals who are homeless in general in our cities, in our country, I can't really speak to statistics in Everett, but in general, of underhoused individuals, only about 15% of them will engage with any drug treatment program while they're underhoused. So that means that we have 85% of drug users are unhoused and using drugs. It is almost impossible to get off the street if you are using drugs once you're homeless. So the effort to reduce homelessness and the efforts to reduce drug use, they have to be in concert. They can't be sequential. And so what happens is when you're able to engage an underhoused individual for any health care on the street, that increases the chances that that individual is housed in the next year by about 5-fold. And that's universal in many different sized cities in different parts of the country. And so we aim to be that medical intervention that helps people take that next step to getting housing.
And maybe this one might be more for Julie. Any concern that a program like this might, the fact that Everett's doing it, might attract people from outside of Everett so that we end up with more homeless and more on the street than we've got now?
Number one, it's a pilot, so we're trying to start it really small and targeted, utilizing our community support staff, our social workers and our outreach workers who are working with individuals and know individuals and may know that they're ready, and try and connect them directly to the peer support and to the medical interventions that might be available to them. In addition, we have the 2020 shelter, we have the EGM pallet community, and we know that those are low barrier shelters where people are struggling with substance use, so we want to connect people who are already sheltered but might not yet have that direct connection to getting that medicated assisted treatment, as well as like Mercy Watch, potentially, using the people that have the relationships and starting there first. So not broadcasting it widely, not going to our parks and, waving signs, not being attached to kind of rogue service providers and such, but being pretty targeted. We've also talked about opportunities to potentially work alongside our courts and our prosecutors for individuals that might be entering drug court or might be entering therapeutic courts that want to have access to treatment. But some of the traditional medicated assisted treatment programs are really rigid, or you have to go to some kind of clinic where there's stigma and there's just barriers with transportation. And so we're trying to remove those types of barriers by starting with this program. I think another really wonderful thing is just his discussion about being able to adapt. And we've talked a lot about not impacting our community negatively. And we've also talked a lot about collecting data. In addition to that, the $500,000 comes from kind of a advocacy and efforts from Christine Gregoire, former Governor Christine Gregoire in Challenge Seattle, where she did a lot of research. She visited drug treatment programs. She visited ERs. She, did a lot of work. Actually, there's a report out about this topic, and then went to the legislature to advocate for these funds. And in that, those funding requirements come criteria for collecting data. So I think there's 4 or 5 different programs that have that financial support. So pretty quickly, we'll have some data statewide that will be able to kind of tell us if we're headed in the right direction or how we need to change things.
Any other questions? Yep. You good? Thank you. I didn't mean to. Okay, Councilmember Ryan.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Roby. Can you share a little bit more about what a person experiences when they receive medically assisted treatment?
Absolutely. So this is one of the things that I enjoy doing the most as the night ER doc down the street. So when someone comes into the ER and is ready to quit, or maybe is suffering from withdrawal and can entertain a conversation about giving up their fentanyl use, we are able to administer a drug called buprenorphine, and within 15 minutes, that individual no longer has the cravings for use. And so this particular drug is an opioid that binds to the receptor in a way that changes the way the brain and other parts of the body interact with the drug. So yes, it binds the receptor, but it doesn't make you high. And so what this medication for treatment does is it returns individuals to a more functional, more normal state that, if the medicine is taken every day, helps enable activities of daily living, like making their own food and getting an ID and doing all the things. As far as kind of the physical transformation that occurs, it's quite rapid and it's quite remarkable. Sometimes in the fentanyl crisis, patients need higher doses of this medicine, and that's where the medical oversight really comes into play here. It used to be with OxyContin or with heroin, we could give a 8 milligram dose and patients would be just fine, but we're finding that we need to do 16 or 24 milligrams, and that's pretty standard. People are seeing that all around the country now, and so my personal goal is to minimize the suffering that people experience when they start treatment, because that's what's going to help them engage in the future. The number of people who follow up on that 3-day follow-up after we give medicines in the ER is abysmal. And without the ongoing relationship with a peer navigator, like what we're proposing, I really don't have any hope for street medicine initiatives for opioid treatment, because that's really how I think the future is going to turn this epidemic around.
Thanks. I know you also serve on the Mayor's Drug Task Force, so I believe it's sometime in June, the task force is going to be coming forward with various findings and suggestions and recommendations. Is there flexibility in this plan to include any applicable recommendations that come from the task force?
Absolutely. So my plan with this effort is to undergo monthly reevaluations of outcomes as we've identified in our proposal and our report. And, you know, we don't have the funding or the car or anything yet. And so I don't imagine that we would actually be on the street serving our neighbors until third quarter anyway. And so, you know, we're shooting for a July 1st start in terms of enrolling our first clients.
I was just going to share that the task force will be introduced to EMOTE tomorrow, and then at their following meeting, we're inviting Dr. Roby to come and share a little bit more about EMOTE and about the Challenge Seattle funding, as well as have invited Dr. Grillo, Jacob, to also come and share about the work that Concord does.
Great. And then since you're off mute, my last question, so if the $500,000 to start the pilot is coming from the state pass-through grant, does that mean that the opioid settlement dollars are unclaimed?
It just prolongs us using the opioid dollars, yeah. I mean, that's still, I think, we don't have any new information from what we shared in January at the committee meeting. We still just have the one settlement that we're receiving annual funding, about $150,000. The other two kind of chunks of money haven't been solidified yet. The first of the next chunk of money is the Johnson & Johnson settlement, and we should have some more information about that by July.
Great. And then I meant to ask too, if the money from the state, is that one-time dollars or is that ongoing?
It's in the operating budget, and we've heard a sense that it's possible that it would be ongoing, but it's just in this current biennium at this point.
So that means 2 years, right? Is that
Right,
what?
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, first I'd like to acknowledge the importance of the humility that you talked about. We're talking about human beings here in all their variety. But I was wondering about what I understand is the evolving landscape of illegal drugs with xylazine and meth. And I know that the anti-opioid drugs don't work on that. I'm curious how you expect to navigate that and how it might change things.
That's a great question. I can say with considerable certainty right now that xylazine is in our community, but it's also very certainly not in our community to the extent that the news media has made it out to be. So there has been one xylazine-associated death in Western Washington, and but the way that xylazine interacts with fentanyl use in particular is quite complicated, and we're just not seeing it the way that some of my colleagues on the East Coast are seeing it. We're prepared to help, but you know, xylazine doesn't really facilitate an addiction per se. It has its effects. It's quite a different physiology, kind of medically, than the way that fentanyl facilitates addiction. So
So the fentanyl is driving the use. The xylazine is an enhancement to it.
Well, there's very little clinically relevant xylazine in our community right now. Now, in the future, I'm sure there will be more, but yes, that's fair. With regard to methamphetamine, fentanyl and meth are used in conjunction almost universally in our underhoused community. And so our peers have lived experience with one or both drugs or with homelessness even. And so we've been working on innovative new ways to treat meth use and meth addiction, but there really aren't a lot of pharmaceutical approaches to meth at this point. But the relationships that we build in helping people achieve their own goals with their fentanyl addiction are easily applied to methamphetamine addiction. And so, I don't see them as separate diseases, just elements of the same disease.
Not exactly encouraging, but less discouraging. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, good. Any other questions? Councilmember Vogely.
I think the answers will be quick, as the questions are. Is Cahoots in Eugene similar to this? Because I didn't hear you say Eugene, but
Yeah,
would that be
so-
something to look into?
So I've spoken with several individuals in Eugene, some of whom several times. And so Cahoots is a different program than what we're doing. Cahoots is similar to what some of our community support team is providing. It's a good model. They're not quite doing what we're suggesting with facilitating these behavioral health interventions on the street. So
Thank you.
they're a good partner, and we need more Cahoots around the country for sure.
And my second question is probably for staff of some, let's see, will a permit be needed to care for people in the buffer zones? I imagine you would certainly get one, but will there be one necessary? Because it's in the law.
We've been talking about that anytime that they do any kind of outreach, either in a park or on a public right-of-way, that they absolutely would get a right-of-way use permit or a special use permit. But again, right now, perhaps they won't. They might meet someone at the UCC shelter, or they might go to a hot meal program that has an existing indoor location or things like that. So
Okay.
we're on it, though, for sure.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Wonderful.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, moving on to our final agenda item, revenue options. We have our finance director, Susie Haugen, back again to give a financial summary.
Thank you very much. Good evening. And tonight's briefing will focus on a preferred levy rate and uses for the proposed lid lift. Next week, we anticipate that council will consider a resolution to approve the language in the ballot measure. So this chart should look pretty familiar to you by now. The green columns to the right of the red dotted line show the lift options that are currently under consideration. Note that I've added the year when the forecast would show a deficit returning above each green column. So for example, with the first option, the short green column on the left, we would expect to see 1 year without a deficit to balance and the budget shortfalls to return in 2026. Going to the column on the far right, we would expect to see about 5 years before the deficit would return in 2030. The ballot measure will require council to choose a new levy rate that would be the basis for the lift. I've indicated the levy rates that would correspond to each lift option that council has been considering along the bottom of this slide. So, for example, the option that is estimated to cost the average value home another $21 per month would be a $2 levy rate. The option that is estimated would cost another $33 per month is $2.29. And for comparison, I have the 2024 actual general levy rate of $1.52 per $1,000 of assessed value in the lower right of this slide. And as a reminder, all of this analysis reflects a status quo budget forecast, and any changes to revenue or expenditure patterns would impact the numbers here. As you're considering which levy rate you would like to place on the ballot, it's important to be mindful of the risks associated with this forecast that could produce different results. First, the amount of revenue produced by the levy rate you choose is highly dependent on what our assessed value will be for 2025 taxes. And we do not receive that information until October from the county assessor. So if Everett's assessed value is less than the forecast, our collections will be lower than we had anticipated. And conversely, if I have underestimated the assessed value for 25 taxes, our collections would be higher. Revenues or expenditures that do not meet projections would also cause actual results to vary from this analysis, with a similar outcome as would happen with assessed value variances. Revenues that fall short or expenditures that exceed projections will reduce the number of years the levy will eliminate budget deficits, and the opposite would be true for revenues that exceed the forecast or expenditures that fall short. In that case, the city would realize additional time before deficits return.
We have a question? Councilmember Zangwill?
Yeah, that is not just if the property taxes don't meet the expectations, plus or minus. That would also include other tax sources like sales and fees.
Correct.
Okay.
So I thought I'd bring this slide back from last week as it provides information that is relevant to the levy rate discussion. As a reminder, the chart below the table brings the data together for a city-to-city comparison of how much the average value homeowner pays in property tax annually for general city, fire, and EMS and library services. The levy rates shown in the table combine levy rates for those services. Everett's, for example, combines our regular levy of $1.52, as shown on slide 3, with our EMS levy rate of 38 cents for a total of $1.90, which is among the lowest in this group. Other services that set Everett apart from our peers is our regional animal shelter and social services, which are also funded through the regular levy. And looking at the chart, when we multiply the combined levy rate with the average value home, Everett comes in at the bottom of our peer Snohomish County cities. Another way to look at this is because there is, as you can see, pretty broad differences in the annual value of homes among these cities. If, for example, an average value home in Everett were to be transported to another city, the property owner would pay more in 8 of the 10 peer cities on this slide. In addition to choosing a levy rate, council will also need to decide how to describe the intended uses of the lid lift. In general, we have been talking about quality of life and essential services. More specifically, we need additional funding to preserve these services, including regularly maintained, accessible parks and trails, social services, support for community members in need, care for lost and homeless animals by the animal shelter, support for the arts citywide, community events like Sorticulture, the 4th of July Festival, and Wintertide, proactive street maintenance, and timely emergency response from police and fire, as well as support for neighborhood associations and more. And it's a fairly short briefing from me tonight. So that concludes the information I've brought for you, and I'd like to pass it back to Council President.
Yeah, Susan, could you go back to that first slide with the timelines? Just kind of start from the beginning. So this was the timeline that we'd set up earlier this year. I just want to talk a little bit about the process before we get to the next step. So May 1st is a key component, right? That's when it's probably in our best interest to approve a ballot measure. Could you talk a little bit about the timelines and what that required?
Yeah, so the council's, should you choose to place, at this point, one would hope, but should you choose to place a ballot measure on that August ballot, the deadline to transmit that to the auditor is August 3rd, not August 3rd, May 3rd. So that's the Friday following your May 1st meeting. So that's your deadline to take action on that is next week.
Okay. So we're waiting to basically the last minute on whether to decide. We could have done this sooner, of course, but May 1st is the date. And it worked out really, I just want to talk a little about the process. I want to go back, because we
Yeah.
had a lot of conversations about the dates, and
I think you have wisely proceeded very deliberately and offered a lot of opportunities for public comment, for council members to attend neighborhood meetings, for you to talk to your neighbors in general. And, you know, our hope is that we get some good clarity from council tonight. We're not asking for a specific action, but that you help us build that ballot measure resolution that will be on your agenda for action next week. And the clarity on the preferred rate is really the key part of it, so.
okay, so we'd planned to have this meeting. We didn't plan to have 30 other motions, but we did plan on having this meeting to have a discussion about the rate. And could you put there we go, we can start with there. So I just want to open up the floor to this council if there's any comments or discussion. Councilmember Ryan?
Great, thank you. Excuse me. Math, could we add, is there, would it be accurate to add an imaginary bar between 3 and 5 years for 4 years? And that would be at $31 per household and come in at a levy rate of $224.
I'm sure that would be close.
I was halvesing everything. Glad my education's going to good use.
And I could model that for
Great.
council.
Because I was thinking if that imaginary bar chart, my math's accurate, for $31, it comes out to about $1 per day for residents, which I think is a nice message. And it, 4 years from now, it might be, put us in another presidential election year, which might be another good time to poll. You know, it's a heavy voter turnout year, so it's a good way to get the pulse of what the community would like to see. Just think for election year wise, for ballots and other things expiring, it might be a good option.
Good, thank you. Any other comments on this? Councilmember Fossey?
So, I understand that this would be needed to maintain all this list of different services and things that we have. But the question that I get from the community is, okay, so what happens if we don't? So does that change on the likely approach if you're going for 1 year versus 5 years on what you're going to cut? Because you won't be able to maintain what we have going on right now. You definitely won't be able to add to it. So would that change how you approach those cuts?
Well, you know, as you know, council passes an annual budget. So we go through an annual budget balancing process. And also by the forecast, with no changes in revenue or expenditure patterns, the size of the deficit grows each year. So in order to balance the 2025 budget, I think we're looking at, today anyway, we're looking at about 12.6 million in cuts to find. And then again, if nothing else changes, the next year we'd need to keep those cuts and make more. So it's going to be a progressive condition unless council determines they want to make even more than the 12.6 million that we're looking at to balance 2025. In that case, in 2026, you might, if you maintained all those cuts, you know, depending on how much you made, you could be balancing 2 years. It would just be a lot more difficult because you'd probably, I believe it's probably more like 16 million the next year. So it's a progressive matter.
I could just add that there's no easy decision left, as you've heard from the mayor and from Susie. So a number of efficiencies have taken place that, could watch that, like 2 weeks ago presentation, and then I think the March one as well, or maybe it was February. So we've made those tough choices, and so it would be a number of difficult and upsetting choices. The more time that is available means that there's time to look for solutions at the state level, time to sort of pursue other opportunities.
So if we're going for a longer span of time and not necessarily a 1 year, and we're looking at putting those longer periods of time on the ballot and the community approves that, we would be less likely to have to cut personnel, likely.
To cut services that are provided by personnel, yes. Sure.
Okay. And I know you guys want to be very careful in the way that you guys talk about this, but at some point, I think that we need to get to a little bit more specifics on what we would look at if we don't put something there for people to vote on, or if people end up voting no, or if we decide between 1 year or 5 years, what that could look like. Not necessarily this is what is going to happen, but these are example packages of specifics of what we would have to look at. Because we are a workforce-heavy service providing, county seat place. I don't think it's difficult to register exactly what that means when you say that you can't maintain those anymore.
I mean, we've talked, not maybe in the specifics you're looking for, but maybe more specifics than I've said so far, but we've talked about further cuts to park maintenance, to social services, arts funding, other quality of life services, impacts to basic public government services, support we provide to social service providers, hiring for essential services. So those are all certainly on the table. And I think maybe if we go to the slide that has the picture on it, you could, if the levy helps maintain all these things, without the levy, we also will struggle to maintain all of those same items. So, but I know you want more specific, so I have that note and.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Vogely.
Yes. I'm trying to find a screenshot of something.
All right, anyone else want to?
Nope, okay, I found it though, it's
Okay,
right here.
all right.
Speaking of specifics and how many personnel are here giving the services, and I know a few years ago we cut a bunch and we've hired, and I haven't checked to see if this is accurate, but the statistic of having 6.5 employees per 1,000 residents compared to 7.1 per 1,000 residents. I'm wondering if there's some accuracy in that statement, that the amount of employees in our city has indeed risen again since like 5 years ago. So I'm just putting that out there because it's something that I saw that I didn't look up for tonight's meeting, but I remembered it and I wanted, because I think about personnel and not just, because they're important. We're a working city, duh. And I very much, as I think you can probably tell by most everything I say, I want people to have work and be well paid so they can live. So, FTEs.
So I think at a previous briefing, I provided a 10-year look back.
Okay.
And so what we're looking at is 2014 to 2024 in budgeted positions. Obviously,
Right.
actuals are
Right.
all over the place, but we're talking about what the council has approved in budgeted FTEs. So when you look at the budgeted FTEs in terms of population growth, the statistic has declined from 7.1 in 2014 to 6.5 in 2024. Although, when you look at that same time span, we have grown on a net basis, but not enough to keep pace with population growth.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. I just wanted to put that out there. And I really do appreciate the $1 a day bit, especially, you know, when nonprofits are asking for things. It's really good messaging. It's good to have good messaging and something that a person can really hold on to and be solid. So I'm going to put that out there. I'm looking, yes, I guess I'm looking at that same thing on my computer, and just, since we're in discussion, there's so many things that are hardly even paid for that are on this list right now. So, I mean, no more neighborhood association support, because that's gone down every year, you know, from 2000, and then the light bulb grants, that's not what they're called, but was the icon that was used when neighborhoods didn't spend their fully allotted $2,000, then the rest of it would go into a pool for more grants. So that doesn't happen anymore. It's gone down to $1,000 per active neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. So my point is that it's dismal, and I support I support the 4-year thing, I think, is where I'm going with that, even though it's not on the bar graph at this time. That's all.
Thank you. Good discussion so far. Anyone else want to weigh in? Councilmember Zarlingo.
This is a bit of a judgment call or a sense of things, but one of the things I've worked on, and I know the city has worked on over the past few years, to stretch the dollars are public-private kinds of partnerships. I'm working on some of that now. I think that's a real positive thing if we can do it. But my sense is also that our ability to do that depends to some degree on our confidence in the sustainability of the budget. Fair to say that we'd be more cautious even about the public-private things if we were on a further downward trajectory in personnel?
You know, my sense would be that we would still, you know, really advocate for that and work on it, but when the city has limited funds, it therefore makes it more difficult for those partners. So if the city is able to kind of front load a few years worth of funding and allow someone like, you know, the VOA to establish the Carl Gibson Center and ease into that service and establish their model over time, that helps that handoff work much better than if our funding is so limited that it's like, we have no choice. We've cut the funding and closed the doors, and is there anyone else that wants to take it up? That's much more challenging, I guess.
Yeah, that predictability element from the way administration manages things is what I
Yeah.
wanted to get a better beat on, I
Yeah.
guess.
Good, I was trying to say that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Well, I was going to give some other, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've really been on the fence about this initiative, and I'll try to share why. Everett's owner-occupied home ownership is 47.5%. We can't even get to 50. It's been like that for a very long time. While the homeowners will see their tax statement and the impact of the 30 to 50% increase for the city of Everett, the renters will just see rent increases. The biggest factor for me is the fact that Everett's median household income is the third lowest in the county. Our schools have over 50% of their students on free and reduced lunches. Everett High School is at 60%. Hawthorne Elementary is over 80%. Inflation, the cost of groceries, utilities, health insurance are all affecting these families. Times are just really tough for the majority of the folks who live in Everett. And I know that you know, the mayor says the tax increase will not bring back anything back that we've cut previously. It will only keep things the way they are. I think this is a really tough sell to our voters. And we have made some headway since 2014 on deficit reduction measures. I don't believe that we've really done everything. I know, for instance, the Burke study listed 7 departments that had supervisory staff at 20% or more, and listed that as a top challenge for Everett, along with our low median income and our low home ownership. So I think what I would like to see is dig much deeper. I feel that the numbers of the income levels is just too significant to ask to raise for these folks. I know if it was just us in the room, I'd say, yes, take it to the max, because we can afford it. But the majority of these folks can't. So I have a really hard time. I know a budget deficit is, we can't just fix it with one vote and think that we're scot-free. It's an ongoing, year after year plan, 5, 10, 15 years out. For that, I just do not feel I can support any level on this levy at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion here? Councilmember Bader.
A little bit of segue there. I mean, I assume that if the levy lid lift gets put on the ballot, the goal is to pass it, and that there is some price sensitivity out there. Is it better to have something that passes if the goal is to put something on the ballot to pass, even if $20 or $25 isn't a huge, or isn't where it would solve or fill the hole or what have you. So I guess I'm more cautious that I think if it gets put on the ballot, it's the price sensitivity does matter, and the lower down we can go, I think the more likely that it gets passed. So I think there's some, not crystal ball, but tea leaf reading, what have you, that what's voter sensitivity out there. So I would just throw that out there.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Councilmember Fossey.
I would love to follow up to both of those comments. And in looking at this, of more of a moderate, like not looking at that, necessarily $1 a day, but if we go down to, say, 3 years, that's less than $1 a day when you calculate it out. And we're not voting to pass this. We're voting to take it to the voters, and if they decide that they want to have those services maintained in the city, then they will vote to pass it. Our vote would just be to put something on the ballot, to bring that choice to the voters. And I don't think that that is a very hard choice. And when we are looking at, yes, they will have to make the difficult decision if they can afford that, if it's important to support, those social services and that shelter and food relief for our most vulnerable in the community. Because while everyone is struggling right now, that's what these services that we're maintaining go to support, the most vulnerable among us, in addition to community events in our neighborhoods and all of these other things that are so key to our quality of life. So I think that I personally am leaning towards the 3-year option, because in a 1 year or 2 year, that is not enough time for us to set up other solutions to go ongoing. And I know where this deficit issue comes from, back in the day, that all the municipalities are dealing with, and I think that that was illy planned in my mind. And so it just created this repercussion of problems snowballing, and so that's what we're dealing with today. And so the 1 year or the 2 year does not give us enough grace to come up with mitigating this ongoing issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
One very brief one on that score, I guess, that I know another community in our county is facing something similar in deficits, and it seems to be, we've discussed this and analyzed it extensively, and I guess I want to say thank you for bringing all this up. Thank you for the leadership here, because that's the way I think our community would much rather see us do it repeatedly, with a lot of warning, with a lot of different angles on it, as opposed to having it something that comes up quite suddenly.
Okay, I'll just step in a little bit here. Couple of things that I'm very concerned about, the overall health of the budget, and that is the lack of infrastructure that we've been supporting in our capital improvement funds, and also our reserve funds that was set up years ago for our medical premiums for our retirees that we're bound to support by law. I don't know how we could, if we didn't put this on the ballot, how we wouldn't have to make decisions about how much we fund those types of, at those levels. So that concerns me a bit, of the overall health of the city. Do I think that the city can cut? Probably, can't we always? I guess this council has to decide, can we cut more and where that would be? And those, I think we've got to the point where if that time comes, and it will, no matter what we put on the ballot, there's going to be some tougher decisions than we've made in the past. I'm also concerned about time, and I do like how it was displayed here about how much time, how much effort is it going to take to make the next choices, whether we put something on the ballot or not. It's going to be a lot of work and a big commitment by this group and the mayor's office to take those next steps. So is 1 year enough time? Maybe. I know we spent a lot of time on these things. I'm leaning more on 3 years is probably, the shortest amount of time, or maybe, I think that's probably a good aspect as far as the time component. I also am concerned, of course, about our message. And this is a great city, and we don't need to be rain clouds. As I keep mentioning before, this is how our taxing system was designed 20 years ago when this was voted on. I know I'm going to keep repeating it because this is how it was designed. Slow growth in property tax until we need more dollars to, we go back to the voters. Now, as a city, we're obviously very lucky or fortunate to have a strong B&O and strong sales tax. Of course, every recession cycle that we've ever had, there's a strong sales tax. There's a bump in sales tax. Not saying that's going to happen, but this one may be different. So some of our other taxing options be very difficult to rely on. So we have to be sensitive to our businesses, and when we just talked about one that we went today, a thriving business, that's going to have to pay B&O tax. So very difficult subject. Either way, if we put something on the ballot and it passes, then we'll have time. If we don't, I don't know what you guys are going to be doing for the next summer, but it's not going to be vacation. I hope we're grinding it out. If we went for some of the other options, we're still going to have to work pretty hard in the next couple of years. Also, I don't want to do this very often. I guess there are some junior taxing districts where, like an EMS or a fire, they just go every year because that's the hand they're dealt with, right? I would, this isn't something, we haven't done it 20 years since the tax initiative was passed by the state legislature, because the Supreme Court did rule it unconstitutional. So this isn't something that I would like to get on and talk about all the great things we are doing here in the city and not be hampered by the budget constant. I know it's one of our primary duties. So I'm just thinking more of that time component, and I'd really like to start talking about what Everett has to offer and how some of the things that we can build on what we're doing. Councilmember Vogel.
Thank you. It's just, I'm impressed with everybody's discussion, and I want to put out there, ranked choice voting for the people, is that, I know it's a possibility because we did it with districts. So people have spoken in ranked choice voting, and I wonder if that is a possibility, 3 different choices, one being absolutely not, we're not going to pass this, the no vote, or, so I'm putting that out there because I think it is a possibility because there are a lot of different voices. And Councilmember Tui, that was actually, I think, pretty brave of you to say those things, and so I am impressed. But then after Councilmember Fossey, there's just some really good ideas up here, and I'm just putting that shout out to everybody right now. I personally have a really difficult time imagining that the voters would pass any of these because of what Councilmember Tui said, but I can also see us putting one forward because of its importance. And there is a lot of absolutely wonderful things that this city does. So ranked choice for the people, if that can be figured out. And thank you.
Ranked choice, that would be something, I don't even know if we have enough time to process that before the August election. Or even the authority to do that. So, I mean, if that's the goal of the city, I certainly would think long-term as a solution, perhaps.
I'm just putting it out there. I know
yeah.
I put it out there
Yeah.
once before, but haven't gone fully in depth as I do on some issues.
Yeah, that one would probably take some more processing to get to that point, from my point of view. So, any other discussion? Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. It sounds like we don't need to vote on a specific level of any type, so I would just voice to help with providing direction that I'd also support the 3-year level, less than $1 a day.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, well, hearing none, we have no further business. We'll be adjourned.